When Superman first debuted in 1938 in the pages of Action Comics issue 1, there was one major thing that differentiated the character from the pulp heroes that came before. That costume. Equal parts theatrical and athletic, the form-fitting bodysuit would soon become the de facto uniform for all defenders of truth and justice, ushering in a new age of superheroes. As publishers scrambled to create new characters that would capitalise on this emerging genre, good costume design was what set apart the successes from the failures. The pop culture icons who leapt from newsstands and into our collective imagination versus those that were not fit for print. All the while, superheroes slowly made their transition from comic books to cinema, a medium that demands realism, bringing with it a whole new set of challenges. How do we translate, as Brownie and Graydon define it, a collection of graphical forms whose only function was to visually signify superheroism into a credible object? Something that could conceivably be worn to upend evildoers without endangering the audience's suspension of disbelief. Many filmmakers have tried, only some have truly succeeded in my opinion, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Hey heroes, I'm Josh from Panels to Pixels, and this is my personal top 10 superhero movie costumes. Number 10. Captain America in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Call me a basic bro, but few things make me happier than when a superhero adaptation takes an iconic design from the comics and just does that. No desaturated colours, no weird basketball textures, no unnecessary tactical gear, just exactly as it appears in the source material. Now, having said that, I'm not a stickler for comic book accuracy. There should always be room for innovation and fresh takes in superhero flicks. But then again, if it ain't broke, you know? And after so many muted, militaristic, and in my opinion kind of underwhelming Captain America costumes in the MCU, seeing Sam Wilson take the mantle in the bright red, white and blues was just pure unfiltered joy. Serving as a flawless fusion of the classic Captain America costume with all of the advanced tech accoutrements of Falcon suit, Sam soars like an American eagle in a getup that just screams freedom. Plus, I feel like having Sam debut as Cap with such a bold, bombastic, celebratory look was a great way for the character to stake his claim in the role of the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan. Number 9. Catwoman in Batman Returns. I think it's fair to say that most comic book movie directors view superhero costumes as a problem to be solved. How can we make these fantastical, oftentimes impractical and admittedly pretty goofy designs work in a three-dimensional space? In other words, how can we ground superheroes in reality? Yeah, well, not Tim Burton, who took one look at Selina Kyle's feline fashion from the comics and the 1966 TV show and said, let's make this even more stylized. Let's make this even more kinky. Let's push the concept of a woman who dresses like a cat to carry out cat burglary to its logical breaking point. The shiny black PVC, the impossibly tall stiletto heels, the serial killer hand stitching, and the Edward Scissorhands-esque claws cobbled together from old drywall screws, nail scissors, and metal wire. It's just, chef's kiss to everybody involved in this design. Combined with Michelle Pfeiffer's campy femme fatale performance and a makeup job that contrasts blood-red lipstick and a corpse-like complexion against the mirrory black catsuit, it's equal parts sexy, scary, and psychologically scarring to the young me who saw this in the 1990s and didn't know whether to run from it or base my sexual preferences for the next 30 years of my life on it. And if you thought this suit looked good when Catwoman first appears in the film, it looks even better by the end when it's all battle damaged, with shocks of Selina's hair exploding from the cowl, just unbelievably, irrefutably iconic. Number 8. Logan civilian gear in X-Men. Now, from super stylized to subtle streetwear, the genius in this costume is how it tells us everything we need to know about Logan, aka the Wolverine. Look, I'm not even sure if this one should qualify as a superhero costume, but I wanted to have some X-Men representation on the list, and the less said about their history of live-action supersuits, the better.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Yes, actually, that's exactly what I would prefer. How do you make a 6'2" Australian Adonis look like a rough and ready redneck who has spent countless Canadian winters smoking stogies and sleeping in his truck? With a leather jacket, over a denim jacket, over a flannel shirt, over a beer-stained wife beater. That's how. It's all about those layers, baby. Take notes as we go into autumn. Wolverine knows what's up. Chuck on a pair of bootcut jeans, because you've got to have that double denim. That's why they call it a Canadian tuxedo. And don't even get me started on the accessories. Man, does Logan know how to keep it simple but classy, with his army dog tags and an oversized souvenir belt buckle. All jokes aside, I just think X-Men's costume designers really nailed the look of this character. It's pitch perfect for Logan, and I think alongside Hugh Jackman's career-defining performance, it helped establish this as the definitive version of Wolverine for so many people. Number 7. Aquaman in Aquaman. Right, so there's an old internet adage that DC's heroes are gods who want to be human, while Marvel's are humans who want to be gods. And although that's probably a bit of an oversimplification, it's certainly true that the costume cavorters of the DC universe skew more towards the godlike, drawing heavily on the influence of Greek mythology. I think this is one of the key things that should distinguish the design elements of DC movies versus the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because whereas Marvel's costuming can be excused for looking militaristic, piecemeal, or slightly handmade, DC's supersuit should always be imbued with a sense of splendour and divinity. Look, I'm kind of going off on a bit of a tangent here, but this list is obviously subjective and personal to me, and in creating it I've tried to be conscious of not just shitting on other live-action superhero suits in order to bolster my choices. But if I can just say one thing about a lot of the costuming we've seen in the DC EU, there does appear to be a tendency to just stretch some ugly textured fabric over a very obvious muscle suit, turn the colour saturation way down, and call it a day. And even though Aquaman's look in both the theatrical and Zack Snyder cuts of Justice League is pretty good in my opinion, it looks like ancient ocean armour, it pales in comparison to the glistening gold and green costume from 2018's Aquaman. Holy crap, would you look at this thing? There's a typo in my script there that says holy carp, and I definitely should have left that in there because it's a way better joke than anything I could have come up with. It's regal, it's resplendent, it looks like a suit of armour fit for the King of Atlantis. This is everything that DC's godlike superheroes should and evidently can look like in live action. And the crazy part is that of all the DC superhero costumes that I would have expected Warner Brothers to commit so hard to and pull off, never in a million years would I have put my money on Aquaman. I mean, holy carp, would you just look at this thing? Number 6, Joker in Batman. There's an argument to be made that every single one of the live-action Jokers deserves to be on a list of top superhero movie costumes. Okay, maybe not every single one, but with so many reinterpretations of the clown prince of crime appearing on the big screen in recent years, I've often asked myself, why does nobody ever just do a classic comic book, purple tailcoat and fedora-wearing goofball crime boss? And I think the reason is that Jack Nicholson hit the ball so far out of the park in 1989's Batman that nobody else wants to even attempt another swing at it. I mean, putting Nicholson's expertly unhinged enactment aside for a minute, this Joker costume is about as quintessential as it gets. For one thing, the cut of the suit is flawless. The designers managed to take a kind of dumpy middle-aged man, no offense Jack, and give him this incredible cartoon character silhouette, with the angular shoulders jutting down to a V at the waist before ballooning out again with the trousers, which in turn feeds into Nicholson's performance as he bounces around like the mad Mephistopheles of mirth. And that's what good costuming is all about. It should be transformative, and not just sit alongside great acting, but enhance it. I feel like the colours and the textures of the fabric were just right on this suit too. The silk orange shirt against the purple and teal check clown pants, with the contrasting shades of violet and lavender throughout the rest of the outfit. Love that Joker. Number 5, Captain America in Captain America: The First Avenger. I mentioned at the top of this list that I'm not the biggest fan of the MCU's approach to Captain America costumes. Jack Kirby's original design for the Sentinel of Liberty is, for my money, one of the most iconic character designs of all time. And the further you stray from that look, with tactical gear, Cordura body armor, and a total unwillingness to even attempt the proper cowl, the harder it becomes for me to buy this as the Steve Rogers I know and love from the comics. Now, I'm not saying we need scale mail, buccaneer boots, and great big wings on the side of the head, but actually, I am saying that. But look, alright, I know that's not necessarily a popular opinion, so the truth is there is one exception. One occasion when I feel that the MCU got Captain America's duds just right. By retaining just enough of the Jack Kirby design and presenting it through period-correct military gear, 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger delivers a costume that toes the line between comic book fantasy and real-world function. I really love how this look evolves throughout the film, from Steve Rogers' time as a USO mascot, to the way that costume is repurposed during the Bucky rescue sequence, and finally the Howard Stark designed suit. Stark could have just outfitted the super soldier in olive drab and khaki, but both he and Rogers recognised that the stars and stripes of the USO suit could be a powerful tool to inspire hope in Cap's fellow men. The First Avengers wardrobe department addressed the cowl problem by designing a helmet based on World War II flying headgear, complete with leather lining and a chin strap. Meanwhile, the suit's many straps, pouches and holsters evoke US paratrooper uniforms from the Second World War, and the subtle pinstripe in the fabric solidifies this as 1940s couture. And then there's the shield, which isn't technically part of the costume, but come on, that's gotta be the coolest prop in comic book movie history, right? Number 4, Wonder Woman's golden armor in Wonder Woman 1984. When it comes to live-action super suits, Wonder Woman has fared better than most comic book heroes. But the standout piece in the Warrior's wardrobe is, in my opinion, her golden armor from Wonder Woman 1984. In the movie, Diana dons this ancient Amazonian armor for her final confrontation with Cheetah. Heavily inspired by the Alex Ross designed look from 1996's Kingdom Come comic series, Wonder Woman takes to the skies and gives the boot to glutes, like a gleaming Glamazonian goddess. Again, just like Aquaman's golden suit, there's a certain regality and larger-than-life screen presence that this armor just exudes. But it's also super 80s, super high fashion, and glam metal as all heck. Seriously, this looks like something you'd see in a Kiss music video. I love it. Alright, so I'm basically a magpie. I don't know what to tell you, I just love shiny things. Number 3, Iron Man in Iron Man. Speaking of shiny things, adapting the mechanized armor of Iron Man for the big screen without looking like a stodgy sci-fi throwback was always going to be a tough nut to crack. Fortunately, the burgeoning Marvel Studios had a secret weapon in artist Adi Granov. Granov, who had previously provided the art for the 6-issue miniseries Iron Man Extremis, was hired specifically by director Jon Favreau to help design the Iron Man and Ironmonger suits for the film. Working alongside the legendary Stan Winston studio, the comic book artist provided concepts for a suit that was totally believable as something that could exist and function and move in the real world. And it also looked badass. I don't think Adi Granov gets enough credit for defining the aesthetic of the MCU. If you go and look back at the Extremis comics, which were published 3 years before Iron Man released, the whole blueprint is right there on the page. The aircraft-inspired paneling, the hot rod red and deep brassy gold, the hollow cheeks and glowing eyes like a grim spectre of motors and missiles. As the Armored Avengers MCU adventures continued, his suits became sleeker and more sports car-like. Nuts and bolts were replaced by nanotechnology, and the perpetually scowling expression of Iron Man's faceplate seemed to relax into a more streamlined design that has so much less personality in my opinion. Look, I'm not mad about it, because narratively it makes sense. Stark Industries is a tech company, and tech design trends towards modernism and minimalism. But the sheer heft of the Mark III, the way it lurches towards enemies like a Ray Harryhausen stop-motion creature, and towers over them menacingly, its tactile weightiness will always be my preference. You want to talk about timeless, iconic designs? This is the suit that launched an entire cinematic universe. Often imitated, never bettered. Except no substitute. Number 2, Spider-Man's final suit in Spider-Man No Way Home. In at number 2, we have a suit that it's no exaggeration to say I've been waiting my entire life to see on the big screen. Yes, while Tobey Maguire's costume has its nostalgic early 2000s charm, and Andrew Garfield's sequel suit was more or less comic book accurate, despite looking a little too much like cosplay for my taste, I'd always felt that the classic red and blue Spider-Man costume that we all know and love had never received its definitive live-action version. Until, that is, the final moments of Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, it's worth pointing out that while this is an impeccably well-designed costume, and we'll get to that in a moment, so much of this suit's appeal owes to its narrative impact and the execution of its reveal. The webbed wall crawler has just faced all the trials and tribulations that the unraveling Spider-Verse had to throw at him, plus the overwhelming grief of losing his Aunt May and any semblance of a normal life with MJ and Ned. At that moment, Peter Parker stands alone in a rundown apartment, down but not out, finally assured in his role as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man by the parting words that Aunt May gave to him. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. We see the sewing machine with the scraps of red and blue spandex, and I just start blubbing in the cinema like a baby. This is the version of the character I've wanted to see on film since I was a little kid, and now that it's here, I just can't handle it. My fiance turns and looks at me like, mate, get a grip, but I'm just like, I love Spider-Man so much. And then bam, we see the suit in motion, and it is beautiful. Dispensing with the perfunctory seams, cutouts, and tech details, this costume goes back to basics with a design that has endured since the 1960s. Thankfully, the John Romita Sr. inspired eyes from Tom Holland's previous suit do stick around though, to make the suit feel even more classic. Holland's shorter, stockier build is perfect for this old school version of Spider-Man. And then the colours, that perfect comic book red and the blue with a little bit of shine to it. Again, magpie, what can I say? Placing an entirely CGI suit that we see for all of 30 seconds so high on this list might seem like a weird call. But let me tell you, it's a testament to how much this costume means to me as a fan, and how excited I am to see it on screen in the future. Number 1, Superman in Superman. If you've been following along at home, you probably saw this one coming a mile off. When it comes to timeless, iconic, colourful designs that respect their source material without descending into parody, and allow their actor to fully transform into the role without being hindered by a bulky muscle suit, combat gear, or motion capture onesie, there is one costume above all. One superhero movie costume that, despite being 44 years old as of this video, remains unmatched in its elegance, influence, and in its enduring appeal. You will believe a man can fly. I mean, how fitting is it that the world's first superhero got the first ever superhero blockbuster? And just as Superman's original comic book design set the standard for everything that was to follow, so too did the costume featured in the movie. Simplicity is key here. The film's costume designers discovered early on that a fake muscle suit wasn't going to cut it for the last son of Krypton, and opted instead for high quality and cutting edge for the time stretch fabrics. There's kind of a distinctive knit and metallic sheen to the bodysuit that offers just enough texture to the costume without becoming a distraction. It all adds a sense of luxury and otherworldliness to the design. No airbrush abs required. Seeing this comic book suit faithfully recreated in live action, with its bold colours and clean lines, just further illustrates the genius of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's original design. The royal blue punctuated by the requisite red trunks and gaudy yellow belt. The wool cape that billows and drapes triumphantly like that of a Roman gladiator. Not too long, but not too short. You've got to remember that the real-world roots of Superman's costume are in 1930s strongmen. It makes sense that a near-indestructible alien whose defining characteristic is his unlimited strength would wear as lightweight a costume as possible. Of course, it helps that it was being worn by a 6'4" man with a chiseled jaw who had packed on over 40 pounds of muscle since being cast as the Man of Steel. There's an earnestness to this costume that is 100% backed up by Christopher Reeve's commitment to the role. What could be a ridiculous suit is rendered totally credible by Reeve's sincere and heartfelt performance. This is Superman, as recognisable as Mickey Mouse or Santa Claus, and about as iconic as it gets. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned that the best people to rely on when it comes to designing comic book characters are, surprise, comic book artists. But we've also learned that good, clean, functional Hollywood costuming, which incorporates simple shapes, coordinated colour, and timeless texturing, can elevate even the most syrupy superhero stories towards cinematic excellence. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you let me know down in the comments about some of your favourite superhero movie costumes. I'm dying to read about some of the ones I've missed. As always, you can follow me on Twitter @PanelsToPixels, subscribe to Panels to Pixels here on YouTube, and until next time, heroes, I'll see you in the funny papers. Bye bye.